All right. Welcome to the Dynasty Pros channel. We have a show for you today. We are going to be doing our redraft of the 2022 draft class. Here I am joined with Sam Waldorf at Where's Waldorf and
What's up,
Cody
y'all?
Folden at Cody Folden. Both guys are on Twitter. Both are contributors with Dynasty Pros. Definitely worth reaching out to them, talking with them. Great insight. Guys, how y'all doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking 2022 rookies. Got to say, going back through this mock draft, like this class was a lot more stacked than I think some people think. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
For sure, I agree. I was happy with a lot of the picks I got, so especially where we got them. So I can't wait to talk about it.
I definitely agree. Looking at like a lot of my old drafts compared to what we have this year, there's a lot of changes going, and I think our viewers are going to like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start us off. The 101, it hasn't changed since last year. It's still Brees Hall. Even in the 12-team Superflex format that we have going right now, Brees Hall is still the 101 in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's an irreplaceable asset. So I'm with you. I think I love some of these wide receivers, but you know what Brees showed early last season is a stud, and that's hard to find at the back end of first rounds of rookie drafts, which is why you got to take them early.
I agree with you as well, but it's more. I think the argument would have been Kenneth Walker over Brees Hall, just because he showed the full year aspect of things. When Penny got hurt, he got a few more games in, and I think just based off recency bias more because Brees Hall got hurt. That I think some people would argue that Walker would be the 101. I don't agree with that, but
He's up there. I think Walker is a. I understand the argument for him, depending on what your preference is. So
for sure.
I can definitely see both sides of it. I mean, I think you're not going to go wrong with either of them. But Brees, for me, I liked him more going into this previous draft year, even though I drafted more Kenneth. So I still had to go Brees.
Mhm.
Sam, who'd you have at the 102?
So I had the 102. Obviously, I would have taken Brees first, but I was stoked to get Garrett Wilson here at 102. Coming into this offseason, I don't know if there's a more hyped player than Garrett Wilson. I mean, I'm all on board the Garrett Wilson train. I honestly think I might technically have him lower than I've seen others place him. But within this rookie class, he's a stud. And if they do get Rodgers, it's a huge upgrade because the guy even produced with Mike White and Zach Wilson. So if you can put anyone else in there to the moon, I'm with it. The dude's a stud. So
He's currently wide receiver number 6 in Dynasty, according to the Fantasy Pros ECR. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he continues. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good pick. He's one of the top wide receivers of this draft class, and like you said, if he gets Rodgers, he's gonna fly. So he's gonna be very happy. I think he's gonna be very happy as long as Zach Wilson isn't throwing him the ball. So it's an obvious pick.
Zach Wilson is honestly better at chasing moms than he is at throwing balls. So,
Yeah.
well, I digress. We'll move on. Cody 103.
The 103, obviously, as we already talked about, was in my eyes was Kenneth Walker, and I picked him here because of the same aspect of Brees Hall. I think he's a can't miss at this point. I would say these three are the top tier of the rookies, and then my guy who is drafted later on, I'll also say is probably in this tier as well. But I like him here. The production was there.
I'm with you. I think Walker showed big playability. I think was one thing when you watched Walker play that made him really stand out. And I think this made Brees stand out as well was those guys broke long runs and they broke them about every game you watched them play. And that is something that you cannot find within every running back. So I think it's a slam dunk pick here. And I would be stoked to get that on my team at any point.
Yeah, I think it was more of there isn't a lot of home run hitters anymore on the running back position, and this draft class had two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you get your hands on either or, I think you'd be happy.
One thing I'd like to point out, I'm going to play devil's advocate against my Brees Hall pick for a second. You can make the argument that the Seahawks are in a better position for Kenneth Walker to thrive. They have a passing offense that is capable to take the load off of him. So that way when he does run, he breaks those long runs that we've been talking about.
True.
So I think his longevity is there.
And he's not coming off injury. I mean, we all would like to believe that Brees is going to be A-okay, and no saying he's not okay, but there is that slight thing in the back of everyone's mind that no one wants your star running back to tear their ACL. Not that it's a career ender, but, if you're picking between clean ACL and torn ACL, I know which one I'm choosing.
You also have to think about it as look at the Seahawks history. They had Marshawn Lynch and all these other. They're built for a running back like Kenneth Walker. So I think he got into the perfect situation, and I think that's why he's going to have a 10+ year career. I personally think so.
I think he will have that 10+ year career. So now we're going to go on a little bit of a wide receiver run, which honestly I loved. I don't think any of these guys are in a bad spot whatsoever. They could have been mixed all throughout these picks, and we'd be perfectly happy no matter what. For 104, I took Chris Olave, wide receiver out from the Saints. He was my 1A, 1B wide receivers with Garrett Wilson this year. And honestly, I think whoever took him in late first like they did, I don't think they missed out at all. I think they got big bang for their buck.
I agree. I think he's the other player I have in my top tier just because I loved him coming out, and I still love him now. He showed that he can just pick apart zone offenses like no one's business, and you need that kind of guy on your offense. And to get him at value in rookie drafts last year was crazy, and even right now, 1.04, I'd be happy taking him then.
Very easy. I think the one thing for me that makes Wilson the pick ahead of Olave is I do think that Wilson carries a little higher upside. I think Olave, he's an amazing producer, but it'll be interesting to see if with Derek Carr he's capable of producing a top 5 season. Now, that is incredibly nitpicking, but that's something that you have to always think about when it comes to these dynasty wide receivers is are they someone that can become a Justin Jefferson? Not that we need to expect that out of everyone, and there is totally a place on your team for wide receivers 6 through 20, but at times it's easier to find those. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Saints offense, because Derek Carr has supported top-end fantasy assets before, but is Chris Olave as good as Devontae Adams? Not yet, but if he can get the target share, could he put up good fantasy numbers? 100%.
One thing I've been seeing is people are saying Michael Thomas is coming back. He's going to cut into Chris Olave. I don't believe in that 1 second. Michael Thomas has been a thorn in the Saints organization side for the past 3 years. I think he's played a total of 10 games.
If anything, I think it helps Chris Olave keep his target share because he's going to stay with one-on-one coverage. Like, they're not going to double Olave. If Thomas is starting to go off, they know based off of previous production that they double him. So even he can beat a one-on-one coverage and beat the zone, like I said before. So I think his value is still there.
Deal. So before we get to this next pick, I got to ask y'all, do y'all think the tier drop at all from picks 1 through 4 and who we have following?
Do you think there's a teardrop?
Yeah.
I personally, with the next guy, I think I would consider him in with this same tier, who I have at 1.5. I do think there is a slight drop after that, but I still think there's a bunch of talent that we're going to go over the rest of the show that one thing I think some people don't think about enough, or they nitpick it with certain players, but they don't apply it to others, is people get better. Players get better. So just because the player that everyone's in love with we think can improve, why can't the other players improve as well? So I just think that's something to always keep in mind, and bet on talent, and there's a lot of talent left.
Definitely. So, Sam, why don't you kick us off? Who's your 105?
So 105 for me was slam pick. I actually would have taken him over Olave if I'm being honest. And that's Drake London. I love Chris Olave. I think he's an amazing player. I think he's an incredible route runner. But there's this part of me that envisions Drake London being a top 5 player, and it's harder for me to make that jump with Olave. Now, I think consistency wise, Olave's the guy. I think he's going to put up those numbers. You just worry with Olave, like, could his career look like Terry McLaurin's, right? No one watching Terry McLaurin thinks he's not a great receiver. I'd say he's probably a top 12 receiver in the league, but fantasy points wise, he hasn't ever put up that season. And that's definitely something you have to consider, where Drake London, not that he's going to, but if he scores 12 touchdowns next year, we're all going to be like, told you so. Like, we all saw that coming. And sometimes fantasy points, it's just fantasy football. It's not NFL football all the time. So I think Drake London, big body, but Ritter's the key here. Or if it's not Ritter, when they moving forward, what's the plan? So
I definitely think.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I definitely think Wilson and Olave have the highest floor, but I think London could have the highest ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to go off of that, I agree. It's more of they want Drake London to be, prime Julio Jones when he could be not that at all. He could be a bust of a wide receiver like Kelvin Harmon. Now, Kelvin Harmon never got on the field, and he already has one season that's already produced a little bit better. But if he starts, like you said, it depends on Ritter. And it depends on the quarterback play. But I think, can he be the alpha wide receiver? It's still too early to tell.
He needs somebody other than Marcus Mariota as his QB.
Yeah.
Or Ritter needs to step up after only throwing, I don't think he threw a passing touchdown in 4 games. Or it might have been 2.
I don't think he had a passing.
Yep. All right. So enough about Drake London. Cody, who do you have at the 106?
106, I have Jahan Dotson. I think I pick him over a few of the other guys that come up here pretty soon because I just see the production he had with the quarterback carousel that he had with Wentz, Heineke, and Sam Howell at the end there. He's just consistent. I love his hands. I don't think even in college tape and last year I've ever seen him drop a ball. And he's for a shorter wide receiver, he has such a catch radius. And he's already beat out Curtis Samuel for wide receiver 2. Now, people would argue that that's not very hard, but it's also, I like Curtis Samuel as well because he's a gadget player. Jahan Dotson will let him be that this year. I think if they really figure it out, they have a really nice wide receiver core.
To go off what we were speaking about earlier on a Samuel player, I think I love Dotson, and I'm 100% with you. The one worry for him, what I think holds him back from being within this top 5 category is it's McLaurin. It's the QB plus McLaurin. If great QBs can support 2 top 10 wide receivers, look at AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. But that takes Jalen Hurts having a dominant season, and we'll see what happens in Washington. I mean, there's hope with Bieniemy, but we don't really know what the offense is going to look like. But, bet on talent, and Dotson is talented. And I'll go down with talent rather than go down with situation any day.
Definitely. So my next guy I got coming up, I could have taken him at 104 potentially. I took George Pickens. I mean, his connection with Kenny Pickett this past season was just unreal. He had a 100.5 passer rating when targeting George Pickens, 815 yards on a 15% target share. That's just unreal numbers to me. I think, as corny as this is going to say, George Pickens to the moon.
I think.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Pickens is a great player. And this goes along with what I said earlier. Like, there's a lot of hate on Pickett right now, which transfers to Pickens. But I think when it comes down to it, it's like he could be the number one in that offense. I still think Deontay is a stud. But I just think that offense can improve. I think that's the thing that a lot of people aren't factoring in is, why can't Kenny Pickett get better from year 1 to year 2? His offensive line was terrible. So why can't he improve? Like, the dude showed some like real grit, and this wasn't necessarily showing in their fantasy production, but he won some big games for him. So I tend to think that he's going to get better, and you could see it was going to Pickens was his guy. He liked Deontay, but he loved Pickens, and Pickens made, he had that game-winning touchdown late in the season. I can't remember if it was the Baltimore or the Raiders game, but it was one of those two. I think it was the Raiders game because I think Najee was the Baltimore game. But, he's big. And same thing I was saying about London is those high touchdown seasons are what win you championships. They're what win you games. It's, so I would take it. I like the pick.
So one thing to say about Pickett, I mean, like you said, he showed grit. He wasn't even supposed to start this year. They signed Mitch Trubisky to that crazy deal. I wanted Trubisky to get a shot, but it just shows he's not there. So he wasn't even supposed to start. It was him, being Trubisky, Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. You can't expect Mason Rudolph to do anything when he's still got a dent in his head from Myles Garrett.
I think it's hard because they still have Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator too, and he seems incompetent with that offense with how many weapons he has. And now Pickett, that you can see he can get the ball where he needs to put it. So I think it might be more of the same this year. Now, in this case, I'm going to take talent over the spot any day. So yeah, it's a good pick.
Yeah. All right, Sam, who do you have at 8?
So 1-8, I gotta say, I was on the clock. I thought I was going to go in a different direction, and then I landed on Christian Watson. Now, pre-draft, last year rookie draft, this is not who I would have taken in this order. And even during the season, I got to say, I think Christian Watson won me over a little bit. I like him more now than I did at the beginning of last season, and that's even with Rodgers leaving, if I'm being honest. I think what it is that Watson did something you hope most rookies can ever do, and I personally value NFL tape higher than college tape. Now, I think college tape can show a lot, and it's a great tool to evaluate players, especially when we don't have NFL footage, the rookies coming in. But once you have a player playing in the NFL, that tape now becomes, I think, more valuable to study. And Watson produced, man. I mean, yeah, he had Rodgers force-feeding him, but he made those catches. And to get Rodgers to trust you even at all is not an easy feat, as we have seen throughout his entire career. So, I have some trust that, the running backs in Green Bay, they're aging. Dylan's a good player. I don't think he's a stud. I think he's a great 1B. Aaron Jones is getting older. So who's to say Watson isn't going to be the number one weapon on that offense? And if Jordan Love finds him and he gets 100 targets, Watson's going to look like a steal at this pick.
And I mean, the one game that Jordan Love was in, he had a great game with Christian Watson. He threw that long ball to him and that long touchdown against the Eagles. So I think there's already a connection there as well. So I think it was a slam dunk pick. And I liked him out of college too. I mean, it's probably biased because I'm from the Dakotas and he went to NDSU. So I watched a lot of them in college actually, but yeah.
If I could have gotten them at 108, that would have been a steal.
Yes.
But I kind of like this pick Cody's got coming up. So Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
1.09 was Dameon Pierce. I was starting to look at the value of some players, and I was like, the third running back off the board should be in round 1, and I think Dameon Pierce was the play here. And that's just because, I mean, he's the obvious number 1 back in Houston with a rookie quarterback coming in and them getting Devin Singletary as a complement that doesn't really scare me that much. So I still think he's the lead back, and even with a whole year under his belt, I think he's only going to get a little bit better. I think he's not going to have that tail off like he did at the end of the year, because now he knows how to actually get fit and stay fit.
And to that point, he has a semi-competent coach now.
Yes.
I mean, nothing against Lovey, but he just wasn't competent.
I think too with their new coach coming in from San Fran, D'Amico, this dude's gonna want to play defense, run the ball, win the game on the defensive side of the ball, and how do you do that? Pierce is the key, and I'm 100% with you, Cody. I got to say, when the Singletary signing happened, I was on Twitter and everyone was like, oh my God, Pierce is screwed. And I was like, dude, have you watched Singletary play? This is the best. This is great. Singletary he's a great role player. He's a great two. He's a great spellback. He's average. He can do a lot of things okay. But that's not what I want on my gravestone, man. Like, Sam Waldorf did a lot of things okay. And I don't think, if Singletary worries you, man, then go trade for Singletary, and hats off to you. If you're one of those guys that's worried about him, I think you can go get him cheap. But I wouldn't do that.
I think it says a lot. I think it says a lot that the Bills went and got Damian Harris over Devin Singletary. So I like Damian Harris a lot too, and that's getting off track of this, but it's exactly to your point. I'm not worried about Singletary at all.
Okay, well, what's coming off the board next, Nick?
I gotta go Kenny Pickett at 110. He's a steal at 110, super flex. He was following 105, 106. 110's a no-brainer.
At 110 in a super flex, of course. And that's the first quarterback off the board. It shows you how little of quarterback talent we had in 2022. But because we had a lot of value there for other players before this, but to get the number one quarterback in the NFL rookie draft that year, I mean, at 110 is an absolute steal.
And just to add one thing about Pickett, I think I could talk about him. I think I'm a Pickett believer more than some people I've seen. But the one thing that I think people are really overlooking is that team is not going to suck enough for him to not be the quarterback on this rookie contract. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be QB6, but I think he's got 2, 3, 4 more years at least. And for a late first, man, good luck buying that anywhere else for a late first in Dynasty. So I love the pick, Nick. And honestly, dude, I wanted to take him 3 picks ago. I thought about it over my Watson pick. I didn't think about it earlier over the London pick because I just think London has the superstar potential. But QBs in super flex leagues are absolute gold. So I think it was a great pick.
I thought about him at 109 as well. So
definitely. I mean, like I said about Pickens, you can't go wrong here.
Pickens to Pickett, man.
Yo, I'm looking forward to it for a while. Sam, give us 111. I could have taken this guy at 110, probably should have, but I'm curious.
So this was the tough one. This was the one that I wanted to take 3 picks ago when I took Watson. And I think if I did this draft over every other draft, I might take Jameson Williams, which is who I took in this pick, or I might take Christian Watson. I think Williams could be. I think at the end of this next year, if Williams goes off, he could be going above Olave and London, no problem, if we see him do it. But that's the thing, right? We saw Watson do it. We saw Olave do it. We saw London do it at the end of the year. He didn't do it all year, right? But Jameson was out all year. Now, his college tape, minus that injury, he could have been that first wide receiver taken, man. He was electric. And this dude, you could even tell from those couple plays he did make last year, he is going to catch. He's going to have a 90-yard touchdown this year. I guarantee it, man. This dude flies. He's got that long leg gazelle running that he's just going to blow by some of these NFL corners and safeties, and they're going to have no clue what just happened to them.
I think a really good point that you brought up about rookies is like you don't like the college tape as much as NFL tape. I think the one thing that really correlates through college is injuries. So hopefully, if he stays healthy, that is the key. But he might be the most injury-prone one out of this list. So with that, I mean, at 111, it's an obvious pick. So I mean, I'd be very happy to get him with the 11th pick because I mean the talent is there, but I'm still worried about the injuries.
Injuries are definitely something to think about, but I could see him being a 1A, 1B with ARSB. I'm honestly looking forward to it.
I'm not. I'm a Vikings fan. So.
Yeah. Cody, why don't you give us your guy?
Yeah. So the 112, I took, I think, the obvious choice, I guess, with when we went with the second round picks, in my opinion, and that was Treylon Burks. They're going to take someone in the draft this year again for more weapons, but he has the Chigokonkwo as well, but there's really no one testing him. So he's going to be the wide receiver one, even with Tannehill. I think that's still enough production for me, especially at the 112. So I'm happy with scooping up Treylon Burks right here.
And let's not forget that Burks was going at 1.4 to 1.7 last year, I want to say. And he had a rough rookie season. You know, he just got hurt. The Titans played without Tannehill. But I thought he showed great flashes, if I'm being honest. I think he looked really good when he was in there. And if he can get the targets, like you said, there is not much competition on that Titans team. And that combined with his talent, I think could lead to something special.
To your point, I think it reminded me a lot of Brandon Ayuk's rookie year, where he didn't get a lot of targets and he was kind of just in and out of the offense, but he was just learning how to be an NFL wide receiver. So I think if Treylon Burks can make that jump, I think he's going to have some really good production.
So let me pose this question, and it's a complete crapshoot of a question. Quarterbacks, if he rolls with Malik Willis, what's his ranking in your opinion? If they get somebody else, what's your ranking for him?
I think if they roll with Malik Willis, then I would have his dynasty ranking higher because it guarantees them Caleb Williams, because that's how bad Malik Willis is. So to answer your question with not how you wanted it, I think it would be absolutely terrible if they roll with Malik Willis. But for this future outlook, that's a great idea, man. I'm all about it.
That's kind of the answer I was expecting, if I'm going to be honest with you. Cody, any thoughts, or are we going to leave it at that?
We can leave that mic drop right there.
That was a good mic drop. Well, now we're going to move into the second round. 201. I went with he was my RB3 going into this past year, and that's James Cook. After seeing Dameon Pierce blow up Tyler Algier, I don't trust Algier, even though he'll be one of my later picks. Cook is my RB3. I want to see him continue growing in that offense. I want to see him be used. Josh Allen, throw him the ball. Let him run it. Just let him be used. Don't let my shares deplete.
I think Cook I think Cook is a good value there, and I think he's a good guy that, depending on who has him in your league, it might be worth sending a message out to that guy just to see how he values him, because I think this is about where he'd be valued. I think you could get him with an early second. I'm not saying I would trade it depending on who's on the board, but like analytically, Cook had a pretty good year. Like let's take out the first half where he didn't play much, and he was battling with Singletary, but he was top 5 and I think it was 15-yard runs, like his percentage of runs that went for 15 plus yards. He was like top 5, maybe even a top 3 guy in the entire NFL. Like, actually let that sink in. Like, him touching the ball, he was breaking big plays, and efficient offenses lead to efficient running backs and good running back performance, and that's what the Bills' offense is. So, I mean, Damon Harris is going to get his. I'm more worried about Josh Allen running than I am the running backs about when it comes to the the attempts and the receptions. But if he can be that 1A on the Bills, I think he's a great pick here. I think he's a great guy to have on your team, be your RB3, flex them every once in a while, throw him in on bye weeks. And there's still that 5-10% chance that he just becomes a stud. So can't rule it out. I like it.
Yeah, I like
hate
to
to say
see,
this.
especially with the Damian Harris pickup as well, because I mean, like you said, Damian Harris is going to get his, but James Cook and Harris are good complements to each other. Because Damian Harris, he doesn't catch passes, he can, but James Cook is going to be that receiving back, and he can also go right up the middle if you need him to, because he showed that at Georgia. James Cook did. Nick, what's that?
I'm going to say this. Damian Harris, I'm sorry. James Cook is going to be the next Ramondre for him. He'll get some decent time, but Cook is going to continue to develop. I think he'll need another year, obviously. But he's going to fit that Ramondre role, steal the thunder from Damian, in my opinion.
And Damian's injury prone. So, I mean, he's going to miss 3-4 games a year probably. So, I mean, it's just going to keep showing you that Cook can be that guy. They just need an insurance policy for this year. And I think that's why the 1-year deal works.
I definitely agree. And I'm looking forward to the offense. I say this every year, and sometimes they let me down, but I'm looking forward to it. Sam, give us your 202, man.
Okay, 202, guys. Hear me out. I'm going to start it out. Hear me out. I'm going Brock Purdy here, right? And I think some people might be surprised by this, but when you actually start to think about it, who has more potential to start on your team? Now, this is all contingent that he can keep that job, right? But I think he has it. I think once he comes back, I think it's his job, because I just think that's the offense that Shanahan wants to run, right? You have Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. I don't think Shanahan wants some QB who needs the ball in his hand all the time. I think he wants someone who Shanahan can tell, give that ball to McCaffrey on this play. Hit Debo on the end. Hit Debo on the slip screen, because Purdy executed, and I think at early seconds, we're starting to get out of this territory where we're picking studs, right? Jamison Williams at 111, stud or potential stud. 112, Treylon Burks. This guy could be a number one. So I think we're in the second round, and James Cook's a great player, but what was I saying? RB2, RB3. Pickett could be a QB on your team for the next 5 years. He just has to keep that job. So
I think it's more. I think that's a pretty good analysis of that, but I think they picked Lance for the reason that they could be more dynamic, because he is a running quarterback. Now, if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to keep the job. But I think Purdy's just another Jimmy G 2.0, and I think that's why they were trying to get rid of Jimmy G. I think he's a great insurance policy. I think they're with another offseason, I think Lance still has a chance. We'll see. You have Darnold there as an insurance policy too if Purdy's arm doesn't recover like they want it to. So, I mean, with that injury that he had and getting that brace put in his elbow, we don't know how he's going to throw. It's an injury that we haven't really seen with a quarterback.
All of this says to me is Lance is on a very short leash.
He's definitely.
I think 4 games. If he doesn't perform in 4 games, then he's getting pulled. Purdy could go in, Mr. Irrelevant, who turns out to be Mr. Relevant. I mean, their offense changed when they traded for CMC, because while Lance had the rushing ability, they didn't have a running back. Now they do. You don't, like Sam said, you don't have to have a guy that tucks the ball and runs every time.
I agree with that, and I think that was the deciding factor of the year last year, not Brock Purdy. It was because he got Christian McCaffrey back there too, for just another weapon for that team.
But that's not changing, is the thing. Yeah. That offense is still there, and I just we'll see. It's so tough to project with Lance coming back from injury, Purdy coming back from injury.
Yeah, exactly.
Now freaking Sam Darnold's in the mix. Who knows, dude? Sam Darnold is the wild card of all wild cards, and we'll just see. But I think when it comes down to it, the value was just good for me, right? I'm not harping and saying go trade your first round pick for Brock Purdy. What I'm saying is that if you need a QB in a Superflex league to be your QB3, say you got 2 QBs you like, you want a QB3, you're sitting there at 2-2 to 2-5 in this upcoming draft or something, and you're like, hey man, I'll give you 2-3 for Purdy. You don't need him. And that could be a great move for your team, It just kind of depends on what your need is. If you need James Cook, it's a great pick. If you need Purdy, it could be a good pick. So
I think the wrap and put a bow on that is I think there's a lot of people with Dynasty Pros that are yelling at the screen that he dropped this far. So I think he's in the right spot. So, but with that, I'll just go right into the 2.03 pick that I had, and I picked Desmond Ridder because, all signs are pointing that he's going to be the starter in Atlanta. Maybe that's not the right decision to go if you could go get Lamar Jackson, but they're going to give him a shot. And I've been a Ridder truther since his sophomore year in Cincinnati. I started watching him, and I'm just like, this guy's got it. Now, maybe that makes me one of the older guys, but I like his play style, and I think he can – I wish he didn't have Arthur Smith, and I think he'd be really good.
I can definitely see that. What you think, Sam?
After getting on my high horse about Purdy, I don't think I'm in the place to critique someone taking a high-risk quarterback in the second round of this redraft. I'm personally not a Ridder guy, but, a lot of the things I said about Purdy are true about Ridder. This is a high-risk value pick that if it pans out, you look like a genius. And second-round picks are second-round picks, man. I always tell people, do not be afraid to trade your second-round pick to go get a guy you want on your team. So using your second-round pick to get a high-value or high-ceiling, low-floor guy, it's a pretty good idea because we're going to know at the end of this season if Ridder is anything. So that's better than him clogging your roster. It's better than a Jalen Tolbert clogging your roster for 3 years. I'll take the shot on Ridder and see what happens.
So to that point, with the 204, I took another high-risk, high-reward guy. He showed a lot of promise last season. Don't know if it's going to keep going. And that's Cody's guy's running back, Tyler Algier. I liked Algier this past season. Definitely thought he had the stuff. Definitely, he showed it. For being a late-round pick, he definitely showed, hey, I got talent. But you got Kyle Pitts coming back. You got Drake London. They're expected to get another wide receiver to go in the mix. Desmond Ridder runs the ball. I don't see how Algier's going to keep up that production.
Is Patterson still there too?
Who?
Yeah, Patterson. Yeah, he's there.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I don't see it, but to get him at 204 is still a steal.
Algier it's the toughest spot, man, because if we were doing this draft a week before the season started and this is what their team looked like, I think Algier could go 5 picks earlier. I think everyone's just scared that another guy's coming in and then we don't know what that looks like. And he gets Michael Cartered in an instant. And it's scary. That's it. But that's also why this next, I think kind of starting with, I think James Cook was the start of it, but really Purdy down in this mock draft as we're going through it. That's who these guys are, right? They have the ceiling, but they're not safe. But that's why they're in the second round, and they weren't our first round players. So I get it. He performed when he was in there, and his PFF, his film, all of that stuff, if you want to look at it, was better than I think people remember. It's just the thought of someone taking his job that's rough.
Yep. You got any final thoughts on Algier, Cody? All right. To that effect, Sam, give us your 205, man.
Okay, we're at 205. We're hitting almost to the back end of the second. I'm sure we can speed it up for you guys. I'm going to go Rachaad White. I think similar to Algier, I think I would take White over Algier, but it's the same thing, man. If he keeps the job, he's going to produce. He's going to get the touches. But I just have a weird feeling that someone else is coming. We just hope it's a 4th or a 5th round pick. It's not a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. He looked great. That offense is going to look different though without Brady, and that's a concern as well. But I don't think there's anything stopping White from being RB 12 through 24 if he's the starter going into next season.
He's definitely going to be an RB2 for me, even if he starts producing.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's the same. I agree with all of that.
All right. So give us your 206, man.
The 206 was a little difficult for me because I didn't know where I wanted to go. And to be frank, I forgot the guy that I got at 209 was there. But I grabbed this guy nonetheless, and that was Alec Pierce. I think he's a good complement to Pittman, and I think he would be a good complement in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. And, I mean, he's a Hunter Renfrow of that team, I think. He's going to be solid, and I think he's going to be there for a long time because I think he's just a guy that Indianapolis is going to like. So he's going to get more targets than we think, and I think it's a good spot for him, a good place for him. He's just the master of consistency, I think.
Yeah, one note, just in addition, before we move on to the next pick, I think we're all projecting Indianapolis to address their quarterback situation. So obviously that's going to help Pittman, but that's going to trickle down to Pierce, who's a good player. He showed in a couple games that he has it. It's just that offense was so bad last year. You almost have to wipe it from your memory and just know that things are going to change. So,
yep. So with that, at the 207, I took Sam Howell, who's supposed to be QB1 opening day for the Commanders. Sorry, not the Redskins. And I liked Howell coming out of college. Loved him. Definitely thought he fell. I want to see how this goes. I mean, like we were talking earlier, he's got Dotson, McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. He's got all these guys. So he has the potential. I just need to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if he can put it together, he's going to be good.
Sam, who do you got at 208?
At 208, man, I'm taking my boy. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and I'm taking Chigo Okonkwo here. I almost took him 3 picks ago, if I'm being honest. But the non-tight end premium part of the draft, I was like, I'm going to hold off a bit. I still think you should prioritize running backs, wide receivers over tight end in a non-premium. But I just think this guy has got the upside that you're looking for at the back end of a second round, right? That second half of the season, man, this dude he wasn't like a league winner, but in a redraft league, if you picked him up off the waiver wire, you were playing him every single week. And he was scoring, like, he was top 5 in like points per touch. This dude was scoring touchdowns and rushing for touchdowns and getting big plays. He broke like multiple 30, 40-yard catches in his first like 15 catches, I want to say. Like, he just had, he has the juice. And that's kind of, you look at some of these top tight ends, and not saying Chig's one guaranteed to be that guy, but what do the top tight ends in Dynasty have in common? The Kelseys, the Kittles, they make big plays. They don't do the Dalton Schultz thing that leads to tight end 5, who, I'm not hating on Dalton Schultz, but you got to make 30-yard plays, 40-yard plays. And Chig has the speed, and he's going to have the opportunity with the lack of weapons in that offense. So why not take a flyer on him? And if it pans out, awesome. He could be, if he has a stellar season, he's moving up the tight end board. I'm telling you.
That, and
Give me all the Chig shares.
Exactly. You have the Trey McBride truthers, you have the Greg Dulcich guys, and then you have the right pick and Chig. So I think, especially in the redraft that's not tight end premium, he's the only one that could have gone. So with that, at the 209, I picked I think the obvious choice in this position, and that's Isaiah Pacheco. I think, he played in the Super Bowl. He's on the Chiefs. He's there. I wouldn't say he's a bell cow, but he's a guy that he's gonna have high intensity runs, and he's gonna be there, and they like him there, so he's going to get his opportunities. So it was an obvious choice.
Him and McKinnon are definitely touchdown hogs. I will say that much.
Well, and that's just that offense, man. That KC offense, loves designing plays for those running backs to score. And it just, if they don't add someone, Pacheco is a great, great value.
Yep. So to that, I took another running back at 210. Brian Robinson. He was going earlier in some drafts, later in some others. I like him. Like we were talking earlier, I don't know how Bieniemy's going to run his offense, if he's going to go running heavy, passing heavy. Who knows? Robinson showed some decent stuff. I think he was averaging 4.5 yards a carry, give or take. So that's not awful for a rookie. But again, this late second round, gotta see more. But it's a high ceiling, very low floor though.
Yeah, I like the Robinson pick. I think, he might chug his way into RB24 this year, RB25, but that's a good player on your dynasty roster. You need more than 2-3 running backs on your team. You need those guys to play on bye weeks and injuries so that you're not playing the Giovanni Bernard or whatever, man. Like, you need someone on your team to throw in there. And I think Robinson fits the mold.
I think if Rivera keeps that job, your Brian Robinson shares are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
If he doesn't stay, I think that's where we might start getting iffy. But at that pick, it's a great pick.
Definitely. Sam, 211.
Okay, so 211. This is my last pick of the video. I already took the biggest riser of the draft in Brock Purdy. Now I'm taking the biggest faller in Sky Moore, all the way down to 211. Everything people said about Sky Moore last year in the draft process that forced him to be a first-round pick in most dynasty leagues, it's still technically true. I'm not saying that he should be a first-round pick, but what I'm saying is he could get better. That offense is potentially still looking for their wide receiver. People are starting to think it's going to be Kadarius Toney, but that's not 100%, and we haven't seen Toney stay healthy. So, if Sky Moore improves, he gets on the field a bit more, maybe he takes some of those, remember that 3-4 week stretch where Mecole Hardman had like 6 touchdowns or something? Maybe he gets some of those end arounds, and I think at the back end of the second round, I'll take the risk here. I think it's a flyer, but I still like the player enough that I think his route running is good. He needs to put a couple things together, but why not, right?
Go big or go home. Cody,
So,
who you
round
got?
up the draft here for 2.12. I picked another player, kind of like in the Alex Pierce spot. I would think that's Romeo Doubs. I think he showed what he is as a wide receiver his rookie year, and I think that's where he's going to be around his whole career. He's just that guy that you can rely on when there's really not much else. And if you're having a bad day on offense, who's going to be the one producing? It's going to be Doubs, because he just goes in there, he does his job right, and then it's going to produce for him. Can he be the alpha or the number one guy? I don't think so. But at 212, and I need a flex spot, I'm snagging up Romeo Doubs every day of the week.
I like it. Sam?
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I'm with you. I think at the beginning of the year, he was hyped like no one's business. Then Watson came in, and people were like, oh, that's right, Watson's the guy that's actually going to be the player in this offense. But Doubs looked like a very solid player. I don't really see a version with Lazard leaving that Doubs doesn't find the field, right? They could definitely add a weapon. I know, JSN and some of these other wide receivers have been mocked to the Packers, or tight ends getting mocked to the Packers a lot too. So that might kick Doubs down a step on, the pecking order on that offense. I personally believe that if Rodgers leaves, I think they're going to run the ball a lot more than people think, to be honest, with those two running backs. But he's a good player. Exactly. I think he's, think of a guy who could have a similar career arc to Zay Jones.
Exactly.
Something like that. Are you going to want to play Zay Jones every week? No. But if you played Zay Jones those couple of weeks at the end of last season when he dropped 30 bombs, you were loving it.
Yeah.
He's a good guy to have around. He's a solid player, and he's going to have those couple games every year where he produces for you.
I think Watson and Dobbs are great wide receivers for what Jordan Love is going to be too. Like you said, I think they are going to run the ball well. They're both very good route runners, and Watson can take the top off. I think that's exactly what you need for a quarterback that you're going to see what he is.
Yep.
They don't demand anything, so go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, this was a great draft. I definitely enjoyed doing it with you guys. To all our viewers, make sure to come check us out at dynastyprosfootball.com. Check these two guys out on Twitter. Follow us at dynastypros.ff. Just reach out, talk. We're always willing, and let us know what else you want to hear. Let us know what else you want us to talk about. We're always looking for new ideas.
Yeah, comment below a video you guys want to see. We'd love to take suggestions or do whatever. I know we all want to do these kind of videos more, some random one-offs of interesting topics. So thanks for checking it out, guys.
Yep, and make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and the bell. I mean, the bell tells you when we're doing stuff. I mean, not sure you want to look at our faces all day, but definitely worth listening to.
100%.
So, guys, thank you again. And to our viewers, we will talk with y'all later.
Cool. See you guys. Cody, Nick, peace, guys.
Nice.